Well, this forum wouldn't be complete without an exceptional moderator, and we are honored to have the state's attorney for Wycomico County serve as today's moderator. In 2017, Jamie Dykes was appointed to serve as the interim state's attorney by the Circuit Court for Wycomico County. She was then elected by the people of Wycomico County to serve as state's attorney in 2018 and re-elected in 2022. Jamie was born, raised, and has been a proud lifelong resident of Wycomico County. After graduating from Parkside High School, she attended Salisbury State University, where she graduated cum laude with a Bachelor of Science in Accounting. In 2005, Jamie graduated cum laude from the University of Baltimore Law School and served as a law clerk to the Honorable Brett W. Wilson of the Circuit Court for Dorchester County until she was recruited to prosecute at the office of the state's attorney for Wycomico County. Jamie found her calling prosecuting violent crime committed against our most vulnerable citizens. Jamie is proud to serve the people of her community as state's attorney and is proud and grateful for the amazing team who work tirelessly putting our community and their safety first. Please welcome the Honorable Jamie Dykes.
Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to moderate here today, but I also appreciate the opportunity for our law enforcement leaders to impart in a way that they don't usually get to some about their experiences and challenges that they are facing today in law enforcement. So thank you all for your commitment and for being here today. I'll start with introductions, and we'll start at the far end of the table. Chief Justin Todd with the Cambridge Police Department. Justin has been a law enforcement officer for 24 years and chief at CPD for 2. Next is Lieutenant John Rebel with the Maryland State Police. He's the commander of the Salisbury barrack. He's been in law enforcement for 30 years. And as I said, has the challenge of leading a very active Salisbury barrack. Chief Craig Plunkett. He's the Freeland Chief of Police. He's been the chief for 3 years and retired after 28 years with the Maryland State Police. Let me see who's next. Chief Mineshine. Law enforcement for 37 years with the Salisbury Police Department. He joined the command staff in 2005 and has served for chief for a year. Then I like to say, no offense to any of the other sheriffs at the table, but this is my sheriff, Sheriff Mike Lewis. Sheriff Lewis has been in law enforcement for 40 years, 22 years with the Maryland State Police, and 18 as our sheriff in Wycomico. Chief Thomas Johnson Jr., Dover Police Department. Law enforcement for 28 years. He started out in Pennsylvania and has been the chief in Dover for 4 years now. Sheriff Ronnie Howard, formerly with the Maryland State Police for nearly 27 years, sheriff in Somerset for 10. Chief DiMartino, Exmoor, Virginia, has been law enforcement for 19, and chief in Exmoor for 13. And last but not least, Sheriff of Worcester County, Matt Crisafulli. He's been in law enforcement for 29 years, Sheriff of Worcester for 6. So welcome. The public expects more of law enforcement than ever before. How do you ensure that they have the confidence in your agency and the profession? I'll start off with Sheriff Crisafulli.
So public trust is a key component for the successful law enforcement organization. I mean, it's the top priority. In today's society, with the evolution of social media, there's more demands on law enforcement officers than ever, and we have to keep communicating with our community on a regular basis. We must keep them informed on matters that we can, and it's a delicate balance when it comes to investigations that are fluid and ongoing. In today's society, with the evolution of social media, we do have that contingent of society that expects to know everything right now in real time, so we have to kind of balance that on the dissemination of information to the public and also trying to keep investigations moving. It's absolutely critical that we, on an everyday basis, continue that partnership of trust with our community. I think it's also important to let our community know that everybody up here and every law enforcement officer, they're human beings doing a job. And when you have human beings doing a job, there's not going to be perfection. So as law enforcement leaders, I think it's important that we hold our men and women accountable, especially in today's society, and I believe that all of us up here do. We have strict policies and procedures, and we have to hold our men and women accountable in order for them to be able to be out here and serve our community with exceptional services. So,
Thank you, Sheriff. Sheriff Lewis, same question, public confidence.
Thank you, Madam State Attorney. I'd also like to recognize Sheriff Bob Downey from Northampton County, Virginia, who's driven up here for this forum today. Sheriff, thank you for being here. As you all well know, we have a huge responsibility to make sure we get things right and make sure we report things right. And when I look at the actual journalists and reporters standing in the back of the room, we have outstanding working relationships with these individuals back here. And there are many times when I deal with them, such as the homicide we had last Friday, share the information you share with me. Is it okay if we release that at this time? Absolutely. But there are other individuals, as you well know, that want to get the information out there first. They want to be the first ones to report the information. Oftentimes, it's highly inaccurate. We don't know what we have until we get on the scene. So when we talk about the community having confidence in our law enforcement, obviously we want to get out there. We want to get the information right. I want to be on the scene. If I can be on the scene, I want to be there so I can see firsthand and hear firsthand what unfolds when we get that information out to our community and get it out to our schools like we did last Friday because our schools were on lockdown due to the homicide. And I hear oftentimes from the community that they feel they do have confidence in what we do because they see me out there front and center. I recognize not all sheriffs and not all chiefs can be out there front and center all the time. God knows I'm not. But it's important, I think, that our community members see us out there with our men and women in the trenches, getting the job done. And I feel we do a pretty good job at that. God knows we're not perfect, but I feel we do a good job at that.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'll go next to Chief Johnson.
Thank you. I think culture and communication would be the two theme words that I would use to answer that question. When you talk about culture, it starts internally with the department, but also extends out into the community. And if you can align those two things, where expectations are set at a reasonable level that everybody can kind of count on as you move from event to event, that helps build confidence. And to the sheriff's point about effective communication, empowering the team, welcoming dialogue, actually soliciting feedback before something occurs. And how many times anybody in this room is in any kind of leadership role, when you hear that term relationships, those stakeholder relationships, whether that be press, I think you're due somebody from the NAACP. I don't know if you know Fleur McKendall from the Central Delaware branch, but she knows she can call me anytime, and I know that I can call her anytime, whether there's something important going on or something not so important going on. And then when I use the term when the wolf comes to the door, and something happens, there's confidence that's kind of universal, both inside the four walls of headquarters amongst the team that's working hard and trying to do the things in line with the mission and the direction of the organization. And the community is already a current customer of that service. And I think those two things tie well together when your community is in trouble and you're trying to deal with the problem.
Thank you. It kind of all dovetails to the next question about communication. Everybody has talked about confidence, right, and communication going hand in hand. How do you balance informing and engaging a myriad of audiences who demand instant information many times at the cost of misinformation and inaccuracy, especially in the age of social media. How do you address those critical issues, and what more resources or additional methods that maybe aren't being employed at this point have you considered? I'll go now to Chief Mindshine.
Thank you, Jamie. So I wanted to touch back on, this kind of ties really, and some of these questions really are closely related, but a lot of this is relationships, and I'd say looking around the room, if we're having some issues in the community that are festering, and we're meeting each other for the first time for a year, and these things have been going on, if we're meeting each other, we're talking about it for the first time, that's a problem right there. And so we at Salisbury Police Department have a media team. So the media team works out of city headquarters. We have our own position for media, and that we're trying to, we've recently lost that person, we're trying to refill it. But a lot of the problems that we have is we're good at the job that our officers are trained to do. Internally, we work through issues, but sometimes where we fall short is pushing that information, pushing the good work that's being done out of the building. And a lot of that is, again, relationships and trust. So if someone has confidence in me or on my staff and we say something is happening, that there's a confidence level there to believe that what we're saying. So that's pushing that information out. To piggyback off what Sheriff was saying as far as misinformation goes, the big problem is that what we've had is when some social media sites push information out, we then chase that information to make sure it's correct. A lot of times when we go to a scene, as law enforcement in the room knows, that some of the information is out. It takes time to vet through that. So some of the initial information we get on calls isn't accurate at all. Sometimes you find out that it's not anything what it was initially called out to be. And some of that information that's pushed out through social media sites, it's already out there in the community. It stirs in a lot of cases community angst, and then believing that, and then instantly believing that that initial information is true. We put information out, and then it's okay, are the police telling us the truth or not? It becomes a question mark, and then we spend half the day trying to kind of untangle that. So a lot of it is just number one, I would say trust and relationships with all entities, not only the public, but among our own law enforcement, and continually working towards a better product. When someone calls, someone talks to me on the phone, whatever it might be, that they know that information, there's a trust that the information is correct. And if there's a piece that we can't give, then they would understand why we can't do it.
So that angst is real, right? And it is the chasing down of information that is so often inaccurate. I end up, sometimes involved in those situations, and it's a huge resource drain for, I know that's what I've experienced myself. Chief Mindshine, something I struggle with also is something that you mentioned, and that is not pushing the good things out, right? Can you, from your perspective, why is that such a challenge?
Internally, I think for our agency is that we're just so busy, there's so much going on. It's almost like when you handle one thing, you're trying to get that right, and then the next thing happens. And sometimes we think the loop, when we talk as a commander, we think the loop is closed, and the next thing you know, it's like, oh, well, I told the people, I say this quite often, in the room, we do a very good job of coming up with an answer. Sometimes what we forget to do is the answer never leaves the room, or it doesn't get to where the folks that need to implement whatever you're saying. So sometimes we go back and we're constantly moving at light speed, and it's just a matter of just taking a step back and developing a better process. And we're constantly working on those type of things. It's just trying to get better at our own communication internally, and then coming up with a better plan to make sure, we're talking about this week, is making sure that we have a plan on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, whatever it might be, pushing that information out. And it doesn't always have to be good information. I mean, there are bad things going on. We know that, that's why we're all here. So it's a matter of just not constantly saying, hey, our officers did a great job doing this, this, and this, but we also make mistakes and stand behind those to make sure that information gets out there as well. And let the public know we know it and we're trying to do better. Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chief. Chief Plunkett.
Good morning. To build a little bit on what Chief Einstein has indicated, I think transparency is extremely important. When you're addressing the public, quick, regular, interval information, accurate information needs to get out to try to be sure that the public understands what's going on internally and how we function internally. I also feel that educational campaigns that we could put together where we could actually bring the public together and have them basically understand what our policies and procedures are and how we move forward in cases, whether it's an internal investigation on an officer or if it's a criminal investigation. And be sure that the public understands that there are times when we can't release information because that information is sensitive to the investigation that's still ongoing. We need to really partner, if we can, with trusted sources, collaboration with organizations that have large social media, so that when these information comes out and it's not good information, that we can address it quickly. We've got that partnership and trust that they will make that misinformation correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We'll just go down the line. Lieutenant Revel, I know that, you're a member of the Maryland State Police and the policies and procedures are probably less flexible than at the local level. But from a communication standpoint, what say the Maryland State Police?
Exactly right. And along with Chief Hunter, Chief Einstein, we have a large chain of command with the state police. We have the luxury of an office of leading communications. I like to rely on them. They are the ones who put out our large press releases. Large, I mean the major incidents, the shootings, things like that. The reason for that is because there are so many entities involved. You've got the barrack level investigators, you've got the criminal investigators, homicide division is involved, along with our crime scene people. And in order to put out any kind of accurate information, it takes us a little while to do it because we've got to get all that information together, present it to our Office of Media Communications, and let them put out a press release. Sometimes it takes a while. And all we can do is hope that the public, whenever they see things on social media, just that they're patient. They give us a little bit of time to get things out, and they don't necessarily believe everything they're seeing or hearing. When a major incident occurs, we get a lot of phone calls simply from things people see on social media. And a lot of it is close, but not quite there. And even with the press calls, we're able to clarify those things. We can't give exact information because we're afraid to give out certain aspects of the case, but a lot of times we're able to tell them, yes, that happened, or no, that didn't happen, at least. But ultimately, we basically rely on our Office of Media Communications to get things out like that.
Okay, thank you, Lieutenant. We'll go next to the juvenile crime question, which is hot in Salisbury and Cambridge. So, Chief Todd, what trends have you noticed and the challenges?
Yes, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Certainly, juvenile crime has definitely spiked for us. I can speak for the city of Cambridge. Last year, our car thefts alone doubled by about 275%. A lot of the children that we were finding doing these types of crimes were 11, 12-year-old kids. They get involved in street activities with certain gang members. They get them to do these crimes because they simply know due to the new legislatures that have come out in the state of Maryland that there's going to be no consequences. So that's been a tough battle for us to try and overcome and deal with. We have tried to work with juvenile services in Dorchester County to work on different plans. We developed curfews, things to begin getting families resources of these children out committing these crimes. 11, 12-year-old kids don't just commit crimes. They just don't go out on the street. There's reason for it inside the home. And we believe that getting to those resources getting resources to those families that are having troubled children inside the home is key, so they don't grow up to be 18 years old and be sitting in prison the rest of their lives. So that's one of the things we're working on, a teen court, stuff like that that can little things along the way, little steps that can get us to finding out why these children are doing what they're doing, and taking steps in the right direction by working with all agencies, from the state's attorney's office, juvenile services, social services, and our law enforcement officers to better the lives of some of these troubled youth.
Thank you, Chief. We'll go to Chief Mindshine with the same question. I'll hit the bigger jurisdictions I know have issues.
Thank you. So my belief is that it doesn't matter what although the current laws that affect juvenile, what the basic, we're holding juveniles accountable for things that it needs to certainly. We're hoping for a better product coming out of legislation this year. We'll continue to try to work on that. But I don't believe that even if the laws were different, that arresting our way out of it is the answer. It never has really been arresting our way out of anything. And I really believe that the police play a part in the solution, but we're a piece. And the larger piece is for some of these kids, in fact, most of these kids, and for the most part, most of the kids we have, all the kids we have are great. It's just that there are circumstances in their lives that have happened through the years that have caused the situation that they're in. And a lot of that is a lack of just anything positive, anything going on at home, particularly with parenting. I think that parenting mentorship, the police plugging in where they can to situations to help mentor, help have programs. I know in Salisbury we just finished up a flag football program. Sports is part of it, but it's just keeping our kids active, whether it be through sports, whether it be through different, we work with a lot of different programs throughout the city. Our staffing, as most of law enforcement right now, staffing is an issue. So sometimes it's just a matter of just keeping a handle on the calls for service. We have luxury right now of looking at our numbers, and we're hiring right now. Our numbers are looking pretty good. And we're hoping to reintroduce some community involvement and some programs that where our officers can be much more actively engaged in foot patrol, light patrol, getting into the neighborhoods, sponsoring events at some of the city community centers. So when the kids see us, it's not, they just don't see the uniform, they see the person behind the uniform. And it's us working in that aspect of it. I'll use, although it's not necessarily juveniles, but I'll use Salisbury University as an example. We work very closely with them. And when we have issues with the students, when we go to the house or where they live and write a citation, this is just a citation, whatever it is, a fine. But when we engage the college and the college engages the parents, it's the same thing with the kids, that gets their attention. It gets their attention because that's where the dollar streams are, if you know what I'm saying. And it's where the parents engage with the kids, saying, hey, look what's going on with you, we need to straighten it out. It's the same thing with the juveniles. It's getting the parents involved and having them help us address the issue for those that are willing to do it.
Have you seen successes in engaging parents, right? And how, if so, what are the common themes to engaging parents successfully?
We have, and it's hit and miss, but we have, there's a couple examples right now of some of the kids that live on the north end of Salisbury. Constantly, and some of these are in the hospital number within the bounds of being held accountable under the law. Some of them aren't, but it's a group of kids that are just going after them in petty offenses. They're breaking into vehicles, they're breaking into businesses, and we know who they are. Some of them we've arrested a couple of times, but it's just, part of it's developing a relationship with business owners, so they don't get frustrated and they think we're not doing anything. So it's not unusual for me and some of the law enforcement to get a call directly saying, hey, so-and-so is at it. Just got a call yesterday, saying they just went north end of town, and just having our team, our group, go out and then that follow-up, that callback, hey, we took care of the issue for you. In this particular case, these folks a couple of kids are living with a grandmother, elderly grandmother, other than with the parents, in the relationship. And she didn't even realize some of this was going on. So it's meeting with her, meeting with juvenile services in some cases, and then coming up with a plan. And that goes a long way, not only for the business owner saying, hey, they are really trying to do something, but let the guardian know, let the parent know. And then the gaze up. In some cases, the kids realize that, hey, you know what, I'm in trouble here. I'm not worried about the police in a lot of cases, but I'm worried about grandma. So it's that type of thing. It's just looking for those type of opportunities to help. One is going to help us reduce our calls. Two is maybe going to help the kids, right? That's the main objective. And it certainly develops a better relationship with business owners and so forth. So.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Johnson, I'm not sure that this is an issue for Dover, but I'm going to venture to say it is. Can you talk to us about what you're seeing?
Yeah, as far as the
Juvenile.
Yeah, the things that I'm noticing that concern me probably the most is the escalation of violence in the crime that we're seeing. And I'm not sure that I speak for everybody on this panel, but the criminal justice system is not going to reprogram the motivation or why they felt like the violence was the solution to their problem. And I'm talking about guns in the hands of 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds. I've got a 13-year-old right now who's running a gang, calling shots, and adults are doing what he's telling them to do. I couldn't even imagine that 20 years ago in my previous location, my previous agency, and how do you wrap your head around that? So I can talk about the uptick in the felony activity. I can talk about a lot of the specifics that we're seeing, but I think the message has to do with and whenever we get somebody in custody, we try and piece together what are we dealing with here? Why are we in this moment? It comes back, there's no structure in the lives of the kids that we end up in custody. Now, how do you want to define structure? I'll leave that to everybody's lens that they see life through. Because just as quickly as I could identify this pile of guys and gals that are in the foster care system, and we're constantly taking them back to the house because they're out all hours of the night and it's not working. What do you expect in a situation like that for someone who's not matured into adult status yet to make adult kinds of decisions? But it could absolutely happen in I don't even know what they can call a normal family situation. That wouldn't be fair to any family that's trying to make it work the best they can in their circumstance. But those moments can occur in that zone too, where there's a presence of a mother or father or whatever the case may be. So I'm constantly on the phone with my superintendent in schools. Thankfully, I have an area where the SRO concept is accepted and embraced through all the positives that it can deliver. That's not always the case. And that helps with understanding of what we're seeing. So the fights in the hallways and the things that go on in between class, we see the connectivity outdoors in the neighborhoods after school, and it helps us be a little bit more focused on figuring out the young people that need extra supports or need extra interventions. Yes, the juvenile issue is a challenge. We've got our first collegiate graduating class that is the COVID class. If anybody's keeping track of the time since the pandemic hit to where we're at right now. And we have a whole bunch of middle schoolers that during their formative years were at home and school was online. And all of those social skills were lost. I'm not a psychologist. I do not have the pedigree to break all that or unpack all that for you. But I can tell you that it's relevant. And when you don't have those social skills, if you don't know how to behave because you didn't have reps on managing relationships, juveniles are more concerned about pleasing their peers than they're concerned about pleasing anybody else. And if the peer group isn't setting a good example, we're playing catch up. So I got significant issues. I don't have the answer, but I'm just trying to throw out there that there's a lot of different lenses that we could look at this through.
Have you seen instances or experienced instances of effective parental or familial engagement, and what does that look like?
I think the word hit and miss came out. Yeah, sometimes we see that, but talk to a teacher and ask them why they're getting up and walking out of the profession right now. I would bet you'd be surprised to find out that more often than times. A slight majority is not about the kids, it's about the parents. And what the expectations suddenly are between what parents expect the roles of educators can and should be. I have charter schools in my community where they're trying to get me to, I don't have an SRO to give them. They're willing to write the check to have a police officer on that site. And why? Well, I said, you're a K through 8 facility. What problems can you possibly have? It's not about the kids. It's when the parents just storm the building and start walking the halls looking for a teacher that they want to scream at because their kid came up and told the story.
Sheriff Lewis is nodding. I have experience of my own with Dr. Stolfer in the room.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm monopolizing the microphone here for a minute, so I'm sure there's similar stories, but
I'm going to pull that card in a minute.
I think you're producing it had to happen. But that's the reality of some of the situations that we're coming across. Shock the average person, because the presumption that it's one thing, but it's actually, no, that's not the biggest problem. It's this thing over here, and this child's life is directly impacted by that thing that nobody's talking about.
And will be for his or her entire life
And-
if it's not corrected.
And these folks.
And our entire community.
Yes, that's the future.
So, thank you, Chief. Chief DiMartino, in Exmoor, what are you experiencing in terms of juvenile crime?
So, kind of done with everybody else is saying, our biggest thing we're seeing is social media is a problem. Everybody's trying to make the next video. There's this new slap fighting. We've got a town park. We had a fight that was recorded and sent to Northampton County Sheriff's Office, SRO. And she sent it to me and said, hey, this is what happened in your park. And speaking with the family, of course, we trespass juveniles if they, fight. We have no tolerance for that for a period of time. If they'll come in and apologize, and it's been told to the family, they'll apologize to the council. They'll send it to them. The grandmother even defended the kid's actions. Oh, that's just that they're slap fighting. They're just doing it for views, and so between the TikTok and Instagram and Facebook likes and that's what we're seeing. Gang activity is really ramped up. And really, Sheriff Dowd should be sitting up here not paying time. Small agency in his county, but he knows everything we're talking about. We deal with the same thing. His officers, we had a bounce gang that started in Hare Valley area, just outside Exmoor. They had some of the Exmoor juveniles. So these kids are really seeing this stuff on social media, the rap videos, and they just want to be the next big gangster, whether it's stealing cars or robbing places, and this is the activity that we are seeing. That they're taking it to a whole new level. I mean, we're having kids that are doing crimes that the Commonwealth won't even prosecute because they're too young, and it's like.
And if in Maryland they can't, we can't prosecute. I don't know what the state law is in Virginia. But.
So in 12, we're having 12-year-olds that are committing serious offenses, and they won't even prosecute because they're too young. So. It's starting, younger and younger, and the more time goes by, we're seeing it's getting worse. So everybody's trying to stop. I guess that's my 5 minutes. So.
I didn't ask for a button to cut mics, so
That's the main problem. We're seeing it. We're all having to deal with it. Everybody knows here. It's in law enforcement. Juveniles are hard to deal with. Trying to get the parents involved. The parents, a lot of times are not there. A lot of times it starts at home. We had, years ago, I went to our judge, our juvenile judge, and I asked, I said, hey, our curfew's 11. Are you okay with me bumping it back to 9? I didn't want to put an ordinance in place that the judge wasn't okay with. The judge said, absolutely, 9 o'clock, the juvenile should be out. And I said, our council passed an ordinance and we have a 9 o'clock curfew now, and that helps some so we can try and get these kids off the street, because if they're out after 9, they're usually up to no good. And we use our discretion. If they're, hey, I'm just walking from a buddy's house, but these kids, like I said, they're stealing cars, and it just blows me away how many people leave their keys in a car. Please don't have keys in your cars.
it goes a long way. Fruitling used to put out social media reminders, make sure your car is locked, make sure all those things help unnecessary law enforcement involvement. The next question is about jurisdictional borders. Route 13 intersects all of our jurisdictions, all jurisdictions represented here. How do you share information on a variety of issues, interdictions, incidents that cross state lines and county lines? I will look to Sheriff Howard as he borders Virginia for some information on how he works with surrounding counties and states.
Morning. We work very closely with Eastern Shore Intelligence Center as well as Delaware and Virginia centers.
Can you describe for the audience what ESIC is?
It's Eastern Shore Intelligence Center where any crime trends, any arrests, any alerts, notifications that we should be aware of, whatever kind of criminal activity it is. And we work closely with them as well as Virginia's Fusion Center and Delaware's Intelligence Center. And our investigators work closely with the investigators in our bordering counties. I speak frequently with the Sheriff Lewis and Sheriff Chris Foley. So we keep pretty well up to speed on that.
Okay. Sheriff Lewis, can you answer the same? You are the interdiction king, I'll say. So you have lots of experience that way. Can you tell us what it looks like today with communications with other states and counties?
Well, first of all, the Eastern Shore Intelligence Center that Sheriff Howard had mentioned, it's always good as the information you feed into it. It's our job to supply information to the Intel Center so they can rapidly disseminate that information to allied agencies throughout the region. In terms of interdiction, what we typically do, if we get a traffic stop in Wycomico County and it's headed down to Northampton County, Virginia, or the Tidal area of Virginia, which oftentimes it is, I'm on the phone immediately notifying that police department down there, that sheriff's office down there, this is what we got. This is the guy we have stopped. And oftentimes they're very familiar with the individual. They say, oh my God, we've been trying to get this guy for years. How much did you get on? Well, we got 3 keys of cocaine and a false compartment in the right interior sidewall. And immediately they start making an application for a warrant for that individual's home. Because I will say, he told me he was in at home at the time I stopped him. And oftentimes, again, not only do we have an open case, but they're able to not only prepare a search warrant for the home, but we may even make application for bank accounts and things of that nature to seize their assets down there. This is something that occurs all the time. It's not unusual to make a traffic stop in Maryland, Wycomico County, for instance, and they be headed up to New York, and instantaneously, when you notify the sheriff's office or police department from the areas where they reside, they're not only very familiar with them, but this is the key that they've been looking for months in their investigation to finally bring their investigation to a successful conclusion. Based on a traffic stop in Maryland, they can wrap their case up down south. Oftentimes, we will deliver that load of cocaine down south under constant law enforcement scrutiny and control, and lock up many additional people down in that location where they're headed. It's what we would call a controlled delivery. But collaboration is key to the success of anything. I do want to touch a little bit about juvenile crime out of state, if I could. We are very blessed in Wycomico County to have a very robust school resource deputy program. We work very closely with our Board of Education. We're very blessed to have Michael Stauffer, the school superintendent, here in the audience with us here today. And we have been working with our Board of Education and our board, period, for years. And I will say this, especially for the journalists in the back room, we cannot control what happens in our schools, but we can certainly control the response to what happens in our schools. And when we work very closely with our school board, God knows they have their hands full handling things administratively, and it's only when it has risen to a level where we have to defer criminal charges that we do. And while it might appear that we are charging the inordinate amount of individuals for crimes in our schools, we can't help the crimes that they commit. And we have a healthy discussion with the board. We decide which ones we're going to charge and which ones we're going to handle administratively. But this is a full-time job. God knows if it wasn't for the 10 school resource deputies and a supervisor we have in schools in Wycomico County, we will never know how many crimes we prevent simply by having those deputies in our schools. But I can tell you this,
The overwhelming majority of our crimes that are solved in the county are solved because the school resource deputies are not only committed to their mission, but they are trusted and confident by many of those kids in the schools who go to these deputies today. That homicide happened Saturday night. This is who did it. This is who you need to be looking at. And instantaneously, the school resource deputies notify our criminal investigators, and lo and behold, we got our case solved. So the school resource deputies working with our schools in a collaborative effort have solved so many crimes, and they do a fantastic job. And when it comes to networking, to me, it couldn't be any better than what we see up and down the East Coast between Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. And I gotta tell you, Chief, I get called all the time to Delaware State Police to go up and search cars with them and assist them up there. And I treasure those moments because that takes me back to the old days, and I enjoy doing that. It really does. It's much better than sit behind a desk and deal with all the other issues. So call me anytime you need me, my friend.
I'll pass that on to you.
Regarding, I'm aware, Chief Johnson, of some cases that have crossed our borders, specifically a lot of gun issues we had 3 or 4 years ago, the initial contact was Dover. We were able to track some of our gun possessions here back to Dover. Can you talk about those relationships and how you face interjurisdictional issues?
Sure. I think, and again, I think we talked before we got started today, the why matters, and sometimes the how matters, and it's not one individual thing. In anticipation of this question, it reminded me to think about, hey, how do we get this accomplished all the time? And I think one is attitude, the willingness. Any professional here that was constructed in the 20th century and learned from the guys that were doing this in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and they're showing you the way, and we'll handle this, don't talk to that, those barriers are down now, and no one's worried about who gets the credit for the arrest. And the idea that if you're another state, another region, another department, if they've got better leverage on the bad guy that you're trying to get out of your community, here, take all of our data, take all of our case stuff and put it to work on your thing, because we're going to get a better public safety outcome. Connections to the federal task forces. There's, depending on where you are and the philosophies of the community and the police department leadership, do we have a person to put on an FBI task force or a DEA task force or something where the relationship, we can leverage those resources, they leverage our local knowledge and local manpower bases, the information exchange. And word information, I'm here to tell you, and if someone disagrees with me, really, please feel free, but I consider information the most powerful tool in policing. When you have the leverage of the information necessary for whatever the situation may be, you're winning, and you're going to win. So a DIAC bulletin that's being relayed all over the regional centers about what's going on. I don't know who they are, who I might be talking about. I don't even know if one's in the room, but thank God for civilian analysts that are taking some of these chairs and looking at these bulletins. And sometimes we don't always have time to look at, to correlate, and see where the patterns are or where the matching variables are, so we can piece things together. Sometimes they deliver on a silver platter. Like, hey, I don't know if you cops know or not, but in my little chair over here, that red Chevy's been involved in 8 different burglaries, but it's in 8 different counties. And someone ought to get together and figure out the common denominator here, and we can solve. That's invaluable. And individually, you can't do that. So the willingness of police officers to cooperate, the power of formal relationships with task forces, whether they be up and down levels of jurisdiction or laterally in jurisdiction, those things matter, and the technology, just the ability of using technology to share information very quickly, I think has a deliverable that's hard to measure.
Okay, thank you. Next, challenges related to cannabis impaired driving. In Maryland, of course, it is now legal, and we all knew that fatalities and near fatalities, serious accidents would increase. What challenges are you facing, and what are effective enforcement strategies. I'll start with Lieutenant Rebel.
Cannabis, of course, it's on the rise, particularly going out, so he says it's currently, we see that a lot more anymore, just like alcohol. And basically, our troopers, as far as enforcement strategies, we handle driving under the influence of cannabis the same way we do driving under the influence of alcohol. If a trooper approaches the vehicle and they smell burning cannabis, it's just like smelling the odor of alcoholic beverage. We'll ask the person to step out of the vehicle. The trooper will decide if odor is coming from them or others in the vehicle. We'll run them through the same testing battery as we do with alcoholic beverages. We're looking for the same blues, or there's a certain test battery that's nationwide that troopers and sheriff's deputies and police officers use. And based on the determination of those tests, we'll place the person under arrest. We do take it a step further. Once we get them back to the barracks and we offer them a breathalyzer test, we can call what's known as a drug recognition expert. They are somebody who's specially trained in the recognition of drugs, and a lot of them are ones I can't even spell. But they can basically determine after that investigation, which includes a blood test, to what drug that person's under the influence of. And it can narrow right down to marijuana. But most of our strategies are basically the same right now as for driving under the influence of alcohol. We use social media to try to put positive messages out there on the do's and don'ts, the rights and wrongs, and everything, and what the laws are. But as far as enforcement strategies, they're basically the same.
Okay. Fruitland's notorious for their traffic enforcement. Some of you probably have been victims of that. So I love Chief Plunker's experiences and especially the challenges that you're seeing now.
Sure, and yeah, the old comment that you don't do it in Fruitland, that's for sure. But yeah, the impairment under the influence of drugs is a significant increase, I know, in our jurisdiction. There's a stigma among the community that cannabis is less of an impairment than alcohol, and that's simply not true. We're actually seeing both cannabis and alcohol combined together, which are causing these crashes that we've significantly seen a rise in Cobb County alone. The issue that we have is we're trying to develop standardized testing to really recognize individuals that are under the influence of cannabis. And as we move towards coming up with that standardization, we can push that out through our training protocols. We all know that there's really no technology out there that has the ability, other than blood work, to determine if someone's under the influence of cannabis, heroin, or any other of these type of drugs that are out there. That technology is coming. We have to be patient. Once the technology comes on board, we have to wait for the courts to readily accept it. And then there are often challenges in that arena as well. And that's going to take a lot of years to get there. But like all the other agencies, we look at driving under the influence of cannabis or any other drug, just like we do with DUIs. We've just got to get it out to the public that it is an influence, it can affect you, and it is causing a lot of issues in our community. Absolutely.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. I'd like everyone, I don't know, where's Bill? What time should we end? Okay, great. I'd like everybody at the table to have the opportunity to address the last question. Have we gotten any questions from the audience, Bill? No. Recruitment and retention, huge issue for everybody, I think. I think some have made some progress, but overall it is as best I can tell, going to be a long-term issue. Officer morale and wellness. What are some key influences of morale, positive and negative? And how does your agency approach these issues and concerns? And we'll start where Sheriff Crisafulli is. We'll start down here if everybody wants to address that.
The recruitment and retention is something that's a national issue that all law enforcement agencies are facing. I can tell you that with the Sheriff's Office, Traditionally, we have state troopers, Ocean City Police Department, allied agencies, their officers would retire and come over and work in our courts. We have a line at the door of applications, and that's just not happening anymore with what's happening nationally in law enforcement. You have young men and women coming out of college or turning 21 and, you know, look, they're very savvy with this and they're looking and they're saying, I'm not going to get into this profession making $50,000 to start with all of the scrutiny. So that's really in its heart. So we have to be innovative with our strategies with recruitment and trying to also retain. And one of the big issues with that is the fiscal component. So we're constantly working to try to up our pay scale. My agency, we're going to be looking at maybe trying to go to a public safety pay scale. And that may help with trying to recruit and retain. And the wellness component is a very big issue also. I can tell you, in 1994, when I went through the academy, I vividly remember them talking about, okay, you're going to come up on crash scenes, you're going to see dead people, you're young man, suck it up, roll up, and move on to the next call. So there was that stigma with wellness and law enforcement, and the stigma with law enforcement officers is, if I go to my sheriff or my chief, they may take my gun and badge from me. We're working to break down those barriers. And I think I can speak for the leaders at this table. We looked in the mirror and we said, you know what? The wellness of our men and women is our responsibility. So we started really taking a deep look into wellness. We have a robust peer support system. We partnered with a mental health clinician. We have to make sure that our men and women are healthy between the left ear and the right ear so that they can provide the services that you expect and that you deserve. So PTSD, unfortunately, is alive and well, and it's not just something that you get on foreign lands fighting foreign wars. It's our men and women working in our own backyards that are suffering from this. We can't turn a blind eye to it. We have to make sure that they know that they can come to us and that we can provide the appropriate resources. Because as a lot of you do know, our men and women see things that no human eye should ever really have to see. And they can't just take it and say, oh, I'm just going to roll it off and move on to the next call. Because you can press that into your brain. You keep pushing it down, it's eventually going to explode. So it's our responsibility to provide those resources.
Thank you, Sheriff. And Chief DiMartino, I'm not sure that, and if add this to your answer, if you will, I'm not sure the public has a great sense of what it is that your men and women experience on a daily basis. So if you can give a glimpse into that also, until you've lived it, you've had a law enforcement officer in your family, I think or first responder generally, right, like fire and EMS, I think it is very difficult for most people to understand what your people face. So if you're able to address that in your answer, that'd be great.
Well, the main thing is, as the sheriff said, these guys do experience a lot of disturbing sights. We had a recruit, I just went to his graduation yesterday. We hired him in the last year, and just during his training, riding with the guys, I mean, he witnessed a lot of stuff. And, we checked on him. You okay? We had a suicide, the man stuck a pistol under his chin and, removed the top of his head. And this is a young man in the early 20s, and you have to check on him. Hey, are you okay? Even a couple days later, because that time sets in. When I think the shock when you first experience it, it's not there. Days go by and you kind of can't get that image out of your head. So he got to experience that. And the other thing about keeping the morale up and just making sure everybody's okay is having a good work-life balance. These guys, I'm a working chief. I still work shifts with my guys. These guys need off. Like last Christmas, I had one of my officers, he's got 2 young kids. I told him to take the day off. I'll cover that shift that morning. My captain came in and relieved me later. But it's just, showing these guys that you appreciate them and that you're willing to go back for them. Money is one thing, but as the sheriff, like I said, everything's so redundant because it all kind of piggybacks off of each subject. When I started as a chief 13 years ago, we had 2 openings. That's when the captain here was hired, and we would get 20 to 25 applicants on a small agency. 20 to 25 applicants. Now we have it open, I'm looking to get 2. And, you know, it's hard. You know, we lost an officer last in March, and I just now replaced him. He graduated yesterday, so over a year to get somebody back on the road. There's not a big pool to pick from, and I've got a rule. As I said, we're close to the sheriff got out here, we should be sitting up here. But I don't hire from his agency. So if he's got somebody that just thinks it's hitting, we just don't do it because it's just too hard to pick and then we're robbing from each other. It's a bad practice to get into. But the main thing is work-life balance and just taking care of these guys here. You know, even if they just want to vent about something, let them be heard. Sometimes it's just want to be heard. And even if the topic is stupid to you, it could be important to them, and they want to voice their opinion and just hear them. You know, at least look at them and listen. If it's important, we'll address it. If it's just something that they need to vent, we'll let them vent. But that's the main thing. And just the guys want to be appreciated, and from not just their agency, from the public too. They want to know that they have the support of the public. That's why they try to do a good job. You know, we've got a really good group. The sheriff's got a really good group. And as Sheriff Lewis was talking about the networking, and that's why these events just like this are important to get to meet new officers, new leaders, and network, give our cards out. And if there's a problem, something going on, we can always reach out, like, hey, you know. And if they don't have somebody, I was talking to the sheriff, Rob Price, what a great guy. You know, we used to work with Rob, we used to shoot a lot with Rob, and you know, I still communicate, I'm still friends and chat, so, you know, just having those connections is great.
Thanks, Chief. Sheriff Howard.
Yeah, we designated a captain in our office, being an early intervention officer for the wellness, and we also partner, as Sheriff Chris also said, with mental health counselors. We're a small office, including myself, there's only 40 of us. And I have an opioid policy with all my deputies, and they're frequently coming in talking, and I tell them, I say what you want, whatever's on your mind, and I try to go at least every quarter to take a different work group out to dinner, and we just sit there and joke around and kid. And I want to get to know them and their families, and they know that they can come to me or any of my command staff with any kind of concerns they may have. Recently, there was a fatal one bypass from Montgomery County where a family was killed. One of my deputies was the first one on the scene, and it troubled her a lot. And we did a lot of talking, and she's doing okay. And regarding recruiting and retention, I make a policy that, as Chief Martino said, I will not pick from another agency. I will not do it because the chiefs and sheriffs are going through the same issue that I am finding people, and that pool to recruits is getting smaller by each passing month, and it's going to get smaller. And another thing that I struggle with, and this is in the Denver County Commissioners in Somerset, they've been very good to us the last 5 years. I mean, very good. But we still can't compete with the salaries that they're paying. The deputies are in the county, they're happy because they give new cars for years, they have great equipment. They say it's nice, but I still hear the whispers of Salisbury City pays very well. My county Worcester, and I hear that. And recently lost 2 guys last year to another agency for better money. Young guys, if I was in their position, I've been in this 42 years. If I was in their position, I'd do the same thing. That's distraught when I don't see it getting any better. I hope I'm wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Howard. Chief Johnson.
A lot to consider when you talk about recruiting and retention. I haven't had the luxury of having more qualified candidates for open positions since the spring of 2021. I've been continually trying to play catch up as far as departures exceeding arrivals. I'm doing okay. I'm probably back to even. For just as many retirements and separations, I have successfully hired folks, and I'm hoping to, as they say, turn the franchise around as soon as you can. But the problems are all over the place. We're a paramilitary profession, and I'm kind of a data nerd. So, you know, I do some research when I'm trying to figure out what the heck's going on, and the military does a great job of figuring out why they can't find people for military service. And it's not an exact match as to what we're looking for at the same time, but it's pretty close. And the most recent publication I could find found that 77% of young people in America are not qualified to serve in the military for a myriad of reasons. There's an overlay there that we can look at in policing. I will grant you the brand issue that we have with the events of the last 10 years and how that's impacted the reputation and the status of policing. And then you can talk about Gen Zers and I got a daughter who's trying to kickstart her world, and she's trying to find a job or maybe work from home a few days, and I'm looking at her like dinner table, like, really? Get your butt, never mind. Might be going someplace I shouldn't go. Patience life. But the idea of those attitudes, that doesn't have anything to do with your opinion of policing. That's just cultural, that's generational. But to go back to the study that I was talking about, the amount of people that are great news, we took the state law of mental illness. Now everybody's getting treated. Now everybody's getting a medication that's probably inconsistent with the policy manual on allowing me to hand you a firearm and the authority to use it. Talk about the cultural shift in drug experimentation and the forgiveness and the grace that we're giving for that kind of stuff. Doesn't fit the hiring criteria policy if you're an accredited policing agency. Those background investigations are crashing and burning over and over and over again. The physical fitness, the ability of the people who can't pass the entry-level PT test because they are so out of shape, because there's no emphasis on that kind of well-being. I could go on and on and on. The issue of behaviors that are being accepted that are criminal behaviors, regardless of how they got handled in the judiciary, there are still factors that we have to consider before we give somebody the authority to be a police officer. And those factors are all combined to, we might have applications, we might have interests, but really the metric is qualified candidates at the end of the vetting process. And they're hard to come by. And those folks have options. When you find that person, the private sector would like them too. And I'm offering nights, weekends, holidays, rain, sleet, snow, icky, whatever it is that might be the thing that turns you off of this profession. And I'm not sure there's any amount of money that can resolve that issue in some folks' minds. So I'm just trying to paint a picture a little bit for you, but that's the recruitment side. The retention side, I think, has to do with taking care of the team, as my peers have alluded to. Again, I was stressing policing and things that impact why we're dealing with the things that we're dealing with. I prefer not to talk about anybody else's experience, but the cumulative career stress, the trauma that you're coping with, is real. I had a platoon mate killed in line of duty. It was my neighbor. I treated him, I carried him, and I threw the ambulance. I stayed with him all the way to the point that the doctor said there was nothing more that can be done. I can tell you the date, the time, every last moment. That was 2002 in January. What month is it right now? What year is it? Do you see the physical change in me and the tone of my voice when I'm trying to describe this to you? I'm okay. Don't be worried.
No.
However, that's just one thing. I was a firefighter. I was a paramedic. I got stories. You need things to get you over the hump. We as bosses, my bachelor's program, the biggest thing affecting retention and morale and health and policing is police administration. Not the situation that I just described to you that I started to get choked up about. Cops care about fairness. Cops care about support. That's in the organization. That's in the political community that is surrounding them. When they don't feel supported, when the boss isn't getting it right, the policy, process, discipline, things of that nature, that twists the gears and gets us into a guy that's staring at 20 years and going, am I taking the first option? or am I gonna stay until they kick me out? Which is what I want, because I need that institutional knowledge to still be in the building while we're trying to put out good product and maintain a good program. So that's where my focus is. I teach leadership for one of the universities that I'm affiliated with. No advertisement there. But when I get the opportunity to promote servant leadership to other up-and-coming police supervisors, I see that as my contribution to the future and trying to get back what I've gotten. If we focus on taking care of our team, they will do the rest. I work with great people, and trying to tell the whole world that I work with great people, this is another opportunity for me to do that. And there are so many variables. Again, I promise you that I wouldn't go too crazy with time and things of that nature, because I've got other great folks to my right. But taking care of our people is a force multiplier. They will go out and they will serve the public better because they feel supported, they feel taken care of, and the public will get that sense. Your misconduct will not be a problem, attitudes will be adjusted and be in good order. There's so many different factors that I could show connectivity between A and Z and all the letters in between. I think it's huge, and I think it comes down to community support and leadership from people that presume to where to get us that we wear every day when we come to work.
Thank you, Chief. Sheriff Lewis.
Well, let me say, being a law enforcement officer to me is like having a front row seat to the greatest show on earth. Every day we come to work. And I love to try to maintain that attitude. But I gotta tell you folks, I'm a traditionalist in so many ways. And I realized as a sheriff, I had to change my ways considerably. For instance, when I went to Maryland State Police Academy in 1984, when I came on the job as a trooper, I was so darn proud to wear the Stetson of a Maryland State Trooper. I went to that academy for 6 months to earn the right to wear that Stetson. Today, my guys, it'd be like I had two heads because I wear my hat. Nobody wants to wear the hat anymore. Nobody does. Nobody wants to wear a traditional uniform like you see us wearing up here. All the deputies are police officers. They look like SWAT guys. They want the exterior body armor. They want the nylon gear as opposed to the leather gear. They want the black boots as opposed to the shiny shoes. We've had to adapt. We've had to evolve just to attract people. Now, is it more practical today to dress different than how we're dressed if we're out here handling calls every single day? Yes, there have been proven studies that show that wearing an external vest, that black tactical vest, with all the accoutrements on the vest as opposed to around your waist, will save your back, will save you your hips, will save you the pain that so many old cops endure today. So I've learned to evolve, and I've learned to adjust to that just to attract people. To retain our people, pay and benefits need more than today than ever before. Greater pay, greater benefits. When you have an executive and a council who are battling publicly every day instead of taking care of this behind closed doors, it is very, very discouraging to the men and women in uniform, very discouraging to my deputies. Then you add in the anti-law enforcement rhetoric and all the demonization of law enforcement across this country, and then you have open ambushes and assaults occurring on our police officers at an all-time rate, 71% increase in ambushes alone of uniformed law enforcement on calls. So when Corporal Keith Eco was killed 3 years ago, on April 25th, he was attacked. On April 28th, they pronounced him dead. 1 year later, on June 12, 2022, just a few miles from that occurred, I had a sheriff deputy shot and killed after doing his job. Not just a sheriff deputy, but an incredible man. A Christian man, a father living at home with his 3 kids, who was a black deputy who exemplified the best in all of law enforcement. He wasn't just a deputy, but he was a black deputy. He was a role model to so many young kids in society today that like to see that man wearing that uniform, exemplifying the best in our profession. Now he's gone down. So I lost several deputies, not just from being killed, but for those who resigned and said, I've had enough. My wife wants to get out of this profession. They didn't need to go to another agency. They left to get out of the profession, period. It's tough to retain when you still have this anti-law enforcement rhetoric, people or special organizations and groups who are accusing us of various things to include racism and profiling. It gets old. Let's communicate, let's talk,
let's continue the dialogue that we all desperately need to serve our communities instead of accusatory comments all day, every day. I still love my job, but I gotta tell you, just like these guys have said, we're all competing for the same pool of applicants. It's smaller now than it's ever been. I'm looking at people today I would have never considered. To be honest with you, tattoos were totally non-existent when I came to my job. If I'm going to exclude an applicant today because they're tattooed from the shoulder all the way down to the fingertips, I'm going to lose out on great applicants. Great applicants. They now have to be considered. If I'm going to exclude someone based on their piercings, through the lips, through the nose, to the forehead, I'm going to exclude great applicants. We've got to look beyond those boundaries. And I think we're starting to turn the corner a little bit, but it's still very challenging to find good applicants today who want to come to this profession. When you offer them greater paying jobs, who have every night off, every weekend off, and every holiday off. As the chief said a while ago, we don't expect our men and women to work shift work all the time. We don't expect them to work holidays, but we expect them to miss their birthday parties for their children. We expect them to miss their holidays because we are a very busy profession. Not complaining, I'm just keeping it real.
Chief Mike Shannon. Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you, Jamie. I want to thank you once again for putting me next to Sheriff Lewis.
I had nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with
I was listening to everybody that's already spoken. I wanted to touch on some things. We can all repeat the same thing because it's all true. We all deal with the same stuff. And but I wanted to mention briefly that there, in addition to the external calls for service that we stress on our folks, there's also the internal, which was briefly touched on. It's the promotional opportunities. There's the disciplinary. There's the new Maryland State Police accountability, where if these officers go out and they use force, and it's viewed in such a way where they step over the line, and that could be anything from vehicle pursuit to an use of force incident. There's a state special prosecutor's office coming in to investigate that, which has nothing to do with anything that you control, what kind of manner safety training. And those are stressors that get put on our officers that the local, the police chief or sheriff or the safety training will have no bearing to say. It's just numbers. And there's a stress about that because there are things that happen in the world and the community that is sometimes beyond the control of the officer, and they get entangled in that. And that's a problem, but it's the world we live in, and that is also a recruiting and retention tool because that word gets out, people talk, and there are law enforcement who, I know it's a legacy profession. A lot of folks have their mother, their father, their grandfather, police officer, which you've seen the last few years ago that going on. Folks retire early. Folks telling their kids, hey, you don't want to do this, you want to be a police officer. And that runs deep, and it's been a problem. As of about a year and a half ago, Maryland itself had just about 1,600 officer vacancies across the state. You look at the percentage of that, 14% across the board in the state. We were no stranger to that. We had 20, just more than 1 year ago. If you include, we're at 93, we had 10 frozen positions, 103 sworn. 10 are frozen, can't fill them. It's not in the budget. Of the 93, there were 27 openings. Now those openings came from injuries, they came from pending retirements, they came from vacancies. And when you look at that, it's a third of your, and so what that does is it creates more stress on the officers that are out there working more overtime, forced overtime. These young folks now, as I always mentioned, but trying to get folks to sign up for overtime, it's not just law enforcement, it's across the board, everybody. Just trying to get folks to sign up. They just want time with their family one way. And when you look at how busy you are, municipal policing particularly, it's busy. That's the concentration, population concentration is in our municipality areas, and it's exposure. It's more exposure to bad things happening. It's more exposure to the potential and the possibility of being investigated for something you did. It's just a number game. It's like playing the lottery. How many times can I roll the dice before something happens? And so they and often folks look at that. But what I'm trying to tell our folks to is working with our command group, developing that, what's worked for us, is developing that family-like relationship with these folks. When they see me walk down the hall, one of my command groups, it's not, oh shit, here comes the chief, excuse my language. It's okay, here comes the chief, let me approach you, instead of walking away and closing the door. When you see a guy walking towards you, then you know you've kind of crossed through into an area that you don't be in. And that's really what I think has made a little bit of a difference, for us at the police department. It takes a better part of a year to hire. We were talking about this a little bit. Yeah, Mike, you and I were talking about this briefly. You look at the hiring process, 3 months, 3.5 months, maybe, if they get through it. If they get through it, maybe they won't. Maybe it's that 15 people, 5 people or so roll through the door and maybe want to, our recruiter folks tell them all the time, hey, we had 30 people show up for the testing today. And then you want to do 2, at the interval. And then, as we mentioned, there's other agencies competing for those same folks, and it's tough. And they've got to get through the academy. It takes 4 months to hire, 6 months academy, 3 months of field training, one part of the year. It takes all that time to hire. It takes 10 minutes for somebody to make a decision to go elsewhere or to get hurt on a call for service and they're out. We just had this happen yesterday. So it's an incredibly difficult position that we're all put in to try to maintain staffing and keep our folks happy.
We're running out of time, Chief.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
I can talk about it for a while. It's just
Yeah,
not-
I'm not done, I probably won't be hired back to moderate. Everybody's looking at their clock. But Chief Leonard, I want to hear from everybody else, but Chief Leonard, you've made some great strides in the wellness of your department and attempt to reach other departments. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, just real brief, because I know we're in a hurry, but the great elephant in the room here is first responders, believe it or not, and a lot of community members that I've spoke to, especially this past Friday night when I had a viewing of the PTSD 911 film over Warwick. Most people don't understand that first responders struggle every day with the critical incidents that they see. An average law enforcement officer seeing 100 to 150 critical incidents in their career. The average citizen is 1 to 2 in a lifetime. It's impacting our first responders. When I was with the state police, I spent 5 years on a crash team. It was 9 of us that were specialized in fatal accidents throughout the entire state. Our therapy was my ship partner would call me after we leave the scene of the accident. We used to call it the good rule. You good? Yeah, I'm good. You good? Yeah, I'm good. Go on to the next fatal. I have to walk down the hall now in my department and I have to look at the people that I represent of my department and make sure that they don't fall in the same situation with PTSD that I did. And I'm not going to let it happen. We're working with Behind the Lines Inc. You can find them on Facebook. They are instrumental in the Lower Eastern Shore, working with law enforcement agencies to address the issues that we have. We got to keep our first responders, fire, EMS, police, corrections, our 911 specialists, we got to keep them healthy so they can respond and effectively do their job. And we're losing people left and right. Most community members say, oh, that's with the veterans. No, it's not all veterans. Veterans have their issues just as well as first responders. And in the community, we need to push this out. We need to do something with our legislators to help us establish funding so that we can build these programs so that we can take care of the ones who take care of the community. And we got to get that pushed out no matter what. I've got peer-to-peer groups that established in my agency. I've got an atmosphere that if you bring an issue to one of those peers or if you come in my office, it stays in my office. We work through it. We've got help. We can get you help. The old signal was, just like they said down at the end of the table, you bring an issue, you may lose your gun and badge, you're just going to keep your mouth shut. Or when I was on the crash team, when I advocated, when I was in charge of the team to try to get people off, it would be, if you need off, you've got some positions on the other side of the state, we can put you there, we've got somebody else that wants to come in. So it was a driving force, they didn't want you to leave even though you wanted to. I have the ability now, in the position I'm in, to make a change, and daggone it, I'm going to make a change. We need to put first responders. Everybody says they're first. Community members, businesses, we need to put them first. Put your money in your mouth is, let's make them first.
Thanks, Chief. Lieutenant Rebel.
I can go off what Chief Walker said real quick about our first responders. The sheriff had a deputy that was out on the scene of the family that was killed on bypass. The trooper from my area that investigated that actually pulled that shot out of the back seat. And I watched it on live cam. It's very troublesome to see that. But I can go a step further and tell you that that same trooper who, he's got relatives on the job. The same trooper was a few days later going to see his younger brother graduate from high school. And on his way home that night, he was in his patrol car on his way home and witnessed a head-on crash of a young lady who was trying to pass him in his unmarked patrol vehicle on 404. He flashed his rear lights to try to keep her from passing. He inadvertently hit his front flashers as well, which activated his camera. And the camera didn't capture the crash visually, but it captured the sound of it. And he jumped out of his vehicle, and one of the passengers of the vehicle that was not involved was dead at the scene. So that's another thing that is stacked on top of this young man that I have to, he's fine, he's good. It's like we always ask him everything, but I still have certain protocol that I've got to go through to make sure this guy's okay. I call him every other day, hey, I make it out, we see each other at the gym, but, it's in his blood. It's, some of us aren't, it's part of the job, and we deal with it, and we roll on. I've seen it for a long time myself. Others, dealing with a trooper who witnessed a shooting, a homicide last year, and that trooper is still under the care of the physician now, to the point where the trooper is under a reporting status. If that trooper feels like they can't come to work that day, they ultimately can use sick leave, no questions asked, and deal with the problem at home instead of coming in and being a danger to themselves or possibly anybody else. I'll get back onto the recruiting part. Thanks to everybody sitting here, our recruiting efforts are pretty good. Because we had to take a few from other departments. I can't blame them for wanting to wear this Stetson and this uniform. It's something I've dreamed of a long time. When I was a young man, it was a big fight to get here. People wanted to be a trooper, they wanted to wear this Stetson. Now, I find myself in, our recruiting efforts are a little different now. We sought people out to do this job. That scares me a little bit, because when we go to somebody getting out of high school, or we go to somebody in their early 20s, and we tell them, hey, you should be a trooper, you're fit, you're in good shape, you're educated, and they're like, what, this uniform, that's pretty cool, I'll be a trooper with this cash, drive a car home and everything, and pretty good pay and benefits. But what they don't realize is what they're getting into. We've had troopers graduate the academy. It's a 6-month academy. It's not as hard as it used to be, and that bothers me as well, because it doesn't prepare them completely, in my opinion, for what they're able to face out there. There's a lot of good people out there, but there's some bad ones as well. Evil's everywhere, and when you're a brand new trooper who has no life experience, and you go to Willard's at 2 o'clock in the morning for a domestic, where you've got a guy that's fully enraged under the influence of anything you can imagine, and you walk in the door and he doesn't care whether you're wearing a uniform or not, there's no backup for 5 minutes, you got in trouble. You better be ready to handle it. And hopefully you prepare yourself for that. And I think a lot of our people who are coming into this line of work aren't really sure of what they're getting into. But as far as our retention, I try to make the Salisbury barrack a home away from home for my troopers. We recently had a trooper whose son had a brain aneurysm that burst. He was in his early teens, a lot of you never heard about it. But you talk about coming together as a family, not only the state police and Maryland State Police Salisbury, but all of the local agencies and community members and everything. This young man got flown to shock trauma. And if he wasn't flown out that night by MSP personnel by our helicopter, he would have passed away. He was bleeding internally in his brain. They had to do brain surgery on him. The minute he arrived, he went from the helicopter out onto the gurney into the operating room. And the cool thing was, he flew with his son on the helicopter, and we had troopers from the Gold Green Barrack waiting for him to arrive. And I know that had quite an effect on him. He knew he had penalty, even though all the rest of them back, they were driving there to see it. It's hard. It's hard to keep good morale with the poor rhetoric that we get from a lot of public and everything now. A lot of people don't like police. It's unfortunate. It's a hard job, but we just try to keep a positive face on and try to do the best we can for the community. So.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel. Chief Todd.
Thank you. You know, in 2014, let's talk about recruitment first, and retention. We were at 52 officers sworn. We were fully staffed at the police department. We had everything from bike patrol to foot patrols uptown. August of 2022, we were at 29 sworn officers. We had no recruitment efforts. We weren't getting anyone to successfully complete the police academy. The ones who did were quickly leaving us. So we had to, as a command staff, we had to make adjustments to try to attract good qualified candidates. And then you've heard each one to my left up here, we're competing against each other to try and do that. There's so many opportunities and nowadays for officers to leave and go somewhere else or pick somewhere else to go for better pay. A city and municipality were busy, and as I heard Chief Monshine say as well. You know, so we worked on recruitment, advertising, getting the word out, but it starts with leadership, and I truly believe it starts at the top. If you promote a good product, you'll come out with good results. And being able to keep that officer as far as retention. We now sit at 39 officers, with one going into the police academy with us in July. And I believe getting programs within the police department, letting them see the chief walk downs, go on calls, the lieutenant command staff, go to trainings. That stuff's important, and it needs to continue to happen within every agency. Every officer that you employ, it is the chief's responsibility and that command staff to make sure that they get absolutely everything they need to go out and do their job fully and give their best to the public that they serve each and every day. And to touch on the wellness, the mental aspect of it, you know, throughout my career, I worked in Cambridge my entire career, handled many certain different circumstances. One that hung with me for 14 years, I had a month-old baby at home. I responded on patrol one night to a baby that was in cardiac arrest that happened to be a month old. I did CPR on that baby, the baby did not survive. For 14 years, I let that ride with me. You know, many other incidences, shootings, I was able to overcome. That stuck with me until I got the mental. I went to a therapist and was able to get the mental help to get over that. It is my job as a leader to make sure that no officer under me has to wait 14 years to get the help they need. And I think that that's where, as leaders, we have to look at. And I think we've come a long way. The stigma's still there with law enforcement and on officers, but I think we've come a long way from where we were years ago. But we need to continue in the right direction with that.
Thank you, Chief Todd. Thank you all for your service and your family's commitment, because you wouldn't be doing this without your family's commitment to you.
To echo Jamie, thank you, gentlemen, for your service, your work, dedication. I hope we'll see you all here next year. No one's planning to retire, I hope. No one's saying yes. If I could ask the panel to stay just for a minute, I'd like to have a picture with our sponsors, Absolute Security Group and Colonial Life, with all of you gentlemen. We appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to UMES, and we'll see you next year. Thank you.